Hi, class. We are on week 3 of our small business management course. And what we have this week is our week 3 checklist in our week 3 content area. And to start week 3, I suggest listening to our course lecture here. And also, please review chapter 5 in your text and go through the little activities in the text too. Those are really helpful when completing different portions of your business plan. The activities will give you ideas for some of the different parts of your business plan, and will help you with that. Chapter 5 is all about competition. So again, the chapter in your text will have some different ideas and suggestions that will be helpful for your assignments this week. Also, you can always review the chapter 5 PowerPoint I've included here, and I will be looking at that in this video a bit as well. Alrighty, so that is the first part of the week. Next, once you've had a chance to learn a bit about competition and our material for this week through the lecture, the text, and the PowerPoint, I suggest going to the graded work for this week. The discussion is always going to be the first place you want to go each week for assignments, because I would like your main response by Thursday each week. So if you're planning your work, just try and plan enough to get at least that main reply in the discussion by Thursday. And if you need, like, say, the weekend to do the rest of the work, you can do your reply to your classmate by Sunday and your assignments by Sunday. But please try and get in that discussion by Thursday each week for full credit. Not only to earn full credit, but also it really helps if you can post in there and your classmates have a chance to respond to your posts. My idea with these discussions is really for us to bounce ideas off of each other and to help each other out. And the discussions help us to then be able to complete the assignments for the week. They kind of give us information and ideas from others to help us in those assignments. So the earlier you can get in there, the better. For the discussion this week, again, our whole week talks about competition for your business. And for this discussion, you're going to list at least 3 competitors to your business and a few of their competitive advantages. For some of you may be thinking, well, I don't actually have competitors. There's this service or product I'm providing doesn't exist at this point. But even though you don't have like direct concrete competitors, you still have competition from other sources of say, entertainment to spend their money. For instance, you may have a restaurant or a movie theater is actually competition to a store, because if a customer only has so much money to spend and they spend $20 in a store, then they don't have $20 to spend at the movies, for instance. So in a way, you're also competing with things that you might not see as a direct competition, like say another exact kind of store, but is still competition for those competing discretionary funds of that consumer. The bookkeeping business that I'm using for my example throughout the course, an example there is that I could actually have competition from owners that are doing bookkeeping on their own. You know, why can't an owner just do bookkeeping on their own? Especially with new softwares coming out that are more and more user-friendly and YouTube videos out there to help people through that process. Why wouldn't they just go ahead and do the bookkeeping on their own? So that's something to keep in mind as well, that even though you don't have maybe a concrete direct competitor, there is competition out there for their funds, for their time, and for their, you know, potentially saving them money to do it on their own. Page 140 in your text is a good tool to use when analyzing competition. I actually included a copy of that in my example post. If you'd like to see it, I'm going to go there in a minute. But I suggest filling out that matrix. The instructions are action step 30 in your book. But I suggest helping or filling that out, and it will help you with your discussion post. I'm going to go ahead and click in that discussion and just look at my example post here for a minute. I ask you to identify 3 competitors. Again, if you truly have no competitors other than someone doing the product or the service on their own, let me know. But really think hard on what's out there. With the bookkeeping, I'm competing against owners doing their own bookkeeping, or potential other employees at the business doing the bookkeeping. I'm also competing with, again, as I said, the business having an employee. So the owner might not do it on their own, but they might have just one of their other employees working there do it. Some direct examples would be WWC Business Solutions in Astoria. They offer bookkeeping services as well as other accounting services like tax returns and 401ks and things, but they do offer bookkeeping services. So they are a direct competitor. Bussert Law and Associates is an accounting firm in Astoria with offices in Seaside as well. They also offer accounting services. Again, they may not be exactly the same price or type of services, but they're definitely competition. And then I found online there was this company called Belay that did virtual bookkeeping service. So a local company, if they didn't want to use one of the local competitors, could go and use the virtual bookkeeping service. And that's becoming kind of a popular option for people nowadays, is to offer bookkeeping to clients that are far away and doing it virtual. That's becoming easier to do because softwares like QuickBooks Online are making it so that it's online on the cloud, and it's very easy for people to access information when they're not on site, making it easier to do virtual bookkeeping. So that's definitely a competitor there. And so I asked you to look at the matrix in your text, and I used that. Again, I asked for at least 3 competitors, and then what are some competitive advantages of your competitors? And one way to do that is to look at that competition matrix to generate ideas. I identified advantages as outsourcing could be cheaper because they maybe have to, they may be paying their employees lower wages due to it being either outsourced to another country. Other states have lower minimum wages and lower wages as well. So maybe it would just be outsourced to another state. Bussert Law and Associates, as well as WWC Business and Consulting, have a set reputation in town. They're I think they have a really good image, and they have a lot of advertising already out there, good reputation, word of mouth, all of that stuff. And so they're settled into the market pretty well. The owner doing their own bookkeeping has an advantage in price, as they obviously wouldn't have to pay for personnel or an accounting bookkeeping business to do their accounting. So that's definitely a benefit. But of course, obviously, they have to have the time and ability to do that. If they had their own employees do the accounting, maybe they're paying them there to be there anyway. And so that also could potentially save them money. But that said, you have to, again, have someone capable of doing that. All right, so here is the matrix. I will go ahead and share that with you. Just a minute here. I've got to click on it and then share. There we are. Here is the matrix from the text for action step 30, and they give you some other suggestions here. But in general, you might just write down your competitors and kind of see who has the advantages. And this just gives you ideas like, oh, maybe my competitor does have the advantage in price and value. Again, an owner is going to think it's a competitive in an advantage, money wise, to do the books on their own. But there's some other things with flexibility, all kinds of things. So this to me is just a way to generate ideas by looking at this matrix. But again, 3 competitors. If you truly have a service or something that does not have competitors, let me know. But again, look at those other ways that you might have competition, whether it be from other ways to spend the money or people doing things on their own. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and that is our competition discussion for the week. Please complete that first main post in there as soon as possible. And again, that's an idea type generating post. It's to get you thinking about who your competitors are and what are some of their advantages. The classroom assignment for this week is also a competition assignment. And for this, I want you to take one of your competitors and just do a little bit more research, a little bit more in-depth research than just saying, oh yeah, Buster Law and Associates has, a reputation in town, that is a well-respected reputation. I want you to do a little bit more research than that. And again, if your business does not have competitors because there's not that service or product already in existence, for instance, your competition is going to be either the consumers living without it, which that is competition. That means they're spending their money on other things, or they're just willing to live their life without it, or them completing it on their own. I know there's at least one student with a business idea that is going to provide some services for organizations that is a service that they're likely doing on their own right now. Investigate how are they getting that completed on their own right now? Are they having to hire extra staff to do that? Is it meaning that they're not able to serve the purpose of their organization because they're spending a lot of time doing that? Look at some ways that they are completing that service themselves, and researching that a bit if you can. And this is going to vary by your business idea, because there's lots of different business ideas out there. But again, if you don't have a direct competitor, think of some of those things that you're competing with. All right. I've attached a document here, and I'm going to go ahead and share that document for questions I want you to complete for that assignment as you research a competitor. All right. And here's the document, evaluating a competitor. And you could do this for more than one competitor. And if you're truly wanting to get your business idea off the ground and not just using this for class, I suggest doing this for more than one competitor. But for the assignment, we only need one. And I ask you for the name of the competitor. If you feel like it's intrusive, feel free not to give the name, but just kind of tell me in general what the competitor was about. And then I want you to, look at what products and services do they provide, and specifics there, not just like, let's say you're opening a Mexican restaurant. What exact menu items do they have? Because there can be 2 different Mexican restaurants, but have a totally different type of menu style to them. Maybe one has a lot of tamales and enchiladas as their specialties, and maybe one of them, is more in tacos, or, that's overgeneralizing a bit, but look into more details there, because it's easy to say you're direct competitors and you have very similar products, but dig into it and say, do we really have that similar of products? And within this, I didn't specifically state it, but kind of tell about their location too, because sometimes that's part of a product, especially if it's a restaurant. If they're on the riverfront, part of that product involves the fact that people can enjoy the river and the ships going by, and so that's good to know that you're going to be competing with that as well. Sometimes you'll notice, like, say a store or a restaurant in Cannon Beach might automatically charge a little bit higher prices for the exact same product, but part of that is based on the location, whether it be more convenient or in, a scenic location, things like that. All right. And so with all that, these kind of go together, but the question here, what do they provide? And then you want to know what's different about what they provide versus the same. Maybe with two restaurants, you're both offering, 5 different types of enchiladas, you both offer margaritas, those are some of the similarities. But once you really take an in-depth look, you'll be like, yeah, but we also are offering this that they're not offering, and they might be offering this item that we're not offering. And by noting those differences, it really can help you differentiate your product, find your niche, and be more competitive in the long run. All right. And also you want to compare pricing. Pricing, are you charging $5 and they're charging $6? And of course, maybe there's a reason there's a 6, like maybe it's a bigger platter of food, or it's in a location like Cannon Beach, or it uses organic ingredients. There can be all different reasons, but it's good to know the different pricing, because if you are charging more money than, say, your competitor, right away you're going to have to provide some extra value for that money, whether it be location, quality, service, something. And so with this next question, how does the quality of service product compare with yours? Is their product higher quality because they're using all in organic ingredients, or it's all cooked from scratch and some of yours isn't? So is it lower than quality than your product? Is it the same? What are the differences there? And those differences are going to help you determine a pricing strategy, a competitive strategy. It also helps you with your target market. You've already identified your target market. Knowing about your target market, like what amount of disposable income they have, can help you in being competitive, not only in your pricing, but differentiating yourself to your competitors to meet your target market's needs. And finally, see if you can find reviews online for the competitor. You may or may not be able to do this, but things like Yelp reviews or Facebook reviews, read through them. I personally, sometimes those reviews aren't always, super accurate, because maybe there's not enough reviews to get a good overall picture. Sometimes people get personal in those, but go ahead and take a look at the reviews and see overall, are your competition, are their customers satisfied? What are some of the things they are satisfied with? What are some things they're dissatisfied with? And again, I've gone through this giving a restaurant as an example, but if you have a service you're providing and, it's a service that's new that, you're going to have to look at this assignment with a little bit different lens. But I think you can still investigate, like, let's say someone was doing a service in-house. How are those products different than what you provide? Well, if they're doing it in-house, it's going to be different because you're going to specialize in that service, which means hopefully you'll be more efficient. Hopefully they'll be able to spend more time on other things. How are they the same? Well, you're still getting the paperwork or the administrative work done that needs to be done. And so you can look at these questions with a little bit different lens depending on who your competition is. The pricing, if they're doing it in-house, the pricing is whatever their wage rate is, or, potentially the work that they're not getting done on something else is being spent doing it in-house. So in a way, instead of them giving up money, they might be giving up productivity in another part of their business. And how does the quality of the service compare with yours? Again, if someone does this in-house and they're not a specialist, how is their quality of service going to compare with what you can provide? And again, I would still look at reviews of, I guess it's not really a competitor, but look at reviews of companies that you would be providing this service for. Is that part of their services that customers are dissatisfied with? You're going to be able to make a sell to them like, hey, I noticed that customers, you know, have said you could use, you know, a little bit more of this, um, you know, service or something at your business. And, you know, so I would still search out some reviews online if you can. Let me know if you have any questions or are struggling with any of these, because again, everybody's got a different type of company and different situations. So evaluating your competitors will be a little bit different for everyone. All right, so you can see we're moving through. Like at first, we're kind of drumming up ideas of who our competitors are and some of their advantages. Then we're in the assignment, we're just exploring one particular competitor. Like I said, feel free to explore more if you'd like on your own. And then it finally gets us down to our week 3 portion of our business plan, which is all about competition. If you were to bring your business plan, let's say, to a potential lender or investor, they want to see that you've fully investigated your competition. They want to see that, you know, you've looked at that, because if you're a business, for instance, and the market in your town is already saturated with that kind of business, it looks like you haven't done your research. Now, if you're going to open a business and there is a lot of competition, that doesn't always mean you shouldn't open your business, because again, maybe you've evaluated your competition and your product truly is differentiated from those other competitors, whether it be by location or quality, some other way. But by evaluating your competition, you can make sure you're doing that. If you find that the market is oversaturated for your business idea, you might need to change your business idea just a little bit in order to differentiate your product. Again, why doing a business plan is so important. I'd like to encourage everyone to read your feedback on your draft portions of your business plans. It is really time consuming for me to look through everybody's, but week 1, the first portion of the business plans, I have feedback for you on those. So please read that when you get a chance. It's in that grades area. You should be able to get to your feedback. Please let me know if you have trouble finding that feedback, because I did spend time reading through all of your first week drafts and giving some more detailed feedback there. It looks like everybody did a really good job of narrowing down their ideas a little bit to work with towards your business plan each week. So that was great. Please, you know, any suggestions I made is just kind of good constructive suggestions to keep in mind going forward. So yeah, look at that, and I will try my very best to keep up with your plans each week and giving as much feedback as I possibly can. Anyway, all right, so you can see though, we are slowly but surely kind of building and developing these plans. It's really neat to see how they're coming together, how we started just throwing out ideas to actually getting an idea to, you know, now looking at our market and now with competition. So this week 3 competition draft here, I'm going to go ahead and actually share with you the competition portion of your draft and what needs to be included there. I say, please write in essay format. So, you know, a few sentences, paragraph format, like you're writing an essay. You know, this is a draft, so it doesn't have to be completely formal, but the more formal, I guess, you can get it in these weeks here, the less you'll have to do of revising it in future weeks. But I also don't want the pressure that you're feeling like you're having to spend a ton of time each week. The idea here is to form your ideas so that when we go to make our final draft, we've pretty much got most of it done. All right, so a minimum of 1 paragraph per topic, approximately a page to cover all of these, you know, give or take a little. And so you can see the questions here we're asking. And by the time we've looked through and answered our discussion and we've answered, you know, our assignment, you should be ready to complete this item here. If something is truly not applicable, you know, please let me know. that will be okay, but make sure it's truly not applicable to your business. And in just a minute here, I'm going to look at the Chapter 5 presentation, and it'll give you some ideas for how to look for a few of these answers too. A lot of it's just going to involve research on your own, looking around. If any of you need ideas, please, email me, because I can give you ideas directed towards your specific business idea. But like I've done here, I've tried to give you ideas for each of these different answers. Look at the market share for your competitors. This one here, especially question 3, I'll address, maybe you kind of want to estimate. For instance, my competitors of my bookkeeping firm, I'm not sure I know the exact percentage that WWC has of clients in town versus Bussert Law, but I can look at how big their businesses are, like how many employees, and it kind of gives me an idea of, the approximate market share that each, that the size of those companies dictates that, yeah, well, Bussert Law has a bigger accounting firm. They likely have a lot more clients. Right. But again, here's some ideas for some places to look for that, but you may just have to estimate and talk about in general terms, larger, smaller versus exact numbers. Same with like number 4 here, ranking your competitors in terms of market position. Again, this is a bit of your opinion as well into here after you've done your research. And what are your competitive advantages? We've kind of already discussed that in the discussion, so you will probably have some ideas for that as well already that you can apply to your paper here. And a last one that's kind of neat is you do have to look towards the future. So we have concentrated on your current competition, but look into the future. Do you think other people are going to start entering into the market? Are technological changes going to change your product or your market? It's always good to forecast and know what's coming so that you can plan for that before, it's a detriment to your business. So a little bit of research there too is good. Okay, I'm going to go on over to our Chapter 5 PowerPoint here and share that. All right, Chapter 5 is all about competition. Who is your competition? Again, it's not necessarily who you think it is. There's direct competition and indirect. Indirect is like the person spending money on the movies instead of going to the restaurant. Which we, looked at our target customers in the past week, define the competition in terms of who can best satisfy their needs and wants. Again, why it's important to know that target market. Your invisible competitor may not be anywhere, but on the horizon, like somebody that technological changes could be a competitor, or someone that might be coming into business a year from now. So it's important to just do your research and any sort of market research you can do, because businesses face competition and change. Things constantly are changing, accelerated product life cycles. The life cycles we addressed in the first week, are you a startup, or is your product more in the mature or stable stages, or is it on its way out? Those product cycles are moving faster and faster with the world just changing so quickly all of the time. And the idea is, I don't think this totally applies too many companies and too few consumers, but you got to make sure there's not too many competitors for too few consumers. And if there are too many competitors, how are you going to be the one that the customers choose? And again, you have to forecast to the future. And if you have a certain product, but then maybe you have to have new product offerings to be able to keep up with competition. All right, so that introduces this idea of competitive intelligence. there's all these different things that can help you be more intelligent in being able to forecast and work with competition and be competitive. I won't read through all of these, but they're here, and just some things to think about. Competitive intelligence is not, though, so this actually does come into play when I ask you to investigate one of your competitors. You don't really want to spy. Like, it's okay if you want to go into a competitor's like store, for instance, and buy a product and see how their customer service is or look at some of their pricing. But spying is where you kind of cross a line. So just keep them, in mind that would be like illegal. Like, you're actually like, spying through, a window or something, not just going into their shop. So yeah, just make sure that, you're doing it comfortably, researching them. Internet or rumor chasing, I'll address that one. Again, with the Yelp reviews, you got to remember those aren't facts. A lot of times people have personal vendettas against owners or whatever it may be. That may mean that their reviews are not always completely, accurate. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, just some things to think about. Continue scouting the competition. Even after you're already in business, you want to make sure that you continue to stay competitive by continuing, who wants to find out that their competitor down the street has been consistently charging $2 less per menu item than you have? Oh, oops, that would be good to know. So you got to make sure that you're continuing to stay up with your competition. One ways to do this is, review their websites. That's another good one. I like that. Their reviews, their websites, if they have a loyalty program, visit their stores, call their customer service numbers, purchase the items, and check out their quality. Look them up on Consumer Reports. Another interesting one is if you're going to, let's say, open a restaurant, you can talk to potential suppliers to your restaurant. And they're probably not going to call out your specific competition, but you might hear from them, that like, oh yeah, salmon has been selling like hotcakes. Then that kind of tells you that your competition is, having a lot of salmon on their menus, for instance. Attending trade shows. Not every industry has trade shows, but I know like in the seafood industry, they had trade shows that highlighted the different seafood products out there. And so that was a great place to learn about seafood products that, say, the competitors were offering. Secondary research and sources, TV and radio, podcast, blogs, Facebook comments, you name it, various workshops and conferences, using the internet. Obviously, it says don't believe everything you read. I've given a couple of internet sites here you can use to do some research. What I really suggest is that in our previous week's presentations, I gave some different sites for researching your target market. Those are also good places to research your competition. So you may want to look back to that previous PowerPoint presentation for some of those links. Just all different sites, the library. Anyway, just some suggestions there. Some ideas too on how you can be competitive and position yourself to be competitive. You can concentrate on operational excellence, meaning you run a very efficient operation without a lot of waste. Product leadership might mean that you have a high quality product that you're, that's kind of how you're differentiating yourself. Customer intimacy may mean that you're differentiating yourself by a high standard of customer service. Those are different ways of remaining competitive and differentiating yourself. Focus on a value that sets you apart from your competitors, and use that to distinguish yourself. If a restaurant has all organic made from scratch meals, they should, that's something they should concentrate on and emphasize. And it says perform a SWOT analysis. Some of you may have heard in, like, say, management classes, that's your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Just looking at, just listing them out so that you kind of know what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses to work on, what are your opportunities to grow your business, and what are threats to your business. We talked about the product life cycle. If your product is like not in existence right now and it's brand new to the market, that would be like the embryonic stage. Sometimes that has a higher failure rate because it's brand new to the market. It's not established. With a lot of your ideas that I've seen, they're very low risk ideas. So, if it fails, you're not going to lose a lot of capital. But one thing I will say is if it did fail, a lot of you have the opportunity to maybe differentiate your product a little, and then it would become successful. So maybe just change it around a little. And obviously, the difficulty there is building up sales volume. It's not necessarily competition. The growth stage means your sales are increasing and you're increasing your loyalty and your name out there. And this is kind of the fun stage to be in because things are growing, getting better and bigger. Your profits are growing up. But when that happens, other competitors see that and get into the market and start a more competitive presence. Mature stage is kind of where the numbers of customers have peaked. The customers that are kind of going to purchase it are in the market already. There's a concentration of the product. And in this case, you might start seeing decreasing prices because there's so much competition out there that the supply is maybe higher than the demand, forcing the price of the product down. And this is where companies need to try and see if there's a way to maybe change their product to make it different and maybe different enough to have another growth stage, or if they need to phase out of that product. Take like a VCR, for instance. VCRs got really popular. Hopefully everybody knows what a VCR is, and then everybody that bought one had pretty much bought one. And then DVDs became popular. So all of a sudden, the demand for that went way down, and the supply was out there. So the price kind of crashed down. And then companies decided that, well, hey, maybe we're not even going to make a VCR anymore because so few people are buying it, and they transferred over to a different product. Some companies stayed in the market maybe because there was still some demand for those VCRs. The decline stage, kind of like with that VCR example, is when all of a sudden, boom, people quit buying them because DVDs came out. They felt the quality of DVDs is more than that of VCR tapes. And businesses would either go out of business, or they're going to get those remaining people buying the VCRs, or have to come up with a new product. All right. So again, competition and positioning in a mature market where there's already people out in the market selling the product is different than if it's a brand new product. And again, if there's already products out there, you have to discover, they call it a vulnerability. I'd rather call it an opportunity. For instance, you open a restaurant in a location of town where there are not other restaurants, or there isn't that type of restaurant in that part of town, or the other restaurant that's your competition, the quality isn't there. Discover that opportunity to beat the competition, whether it be through superior service or quality. Or maybe you just run your business more efficiently and can make a profit because you're more efficient with your use of your resources. That can be the case too. You could have a very successful business, but if they are not staffing efficiently, like they have people sitting around and yet still getting paid, they could have a really successful place, but not have the profits to back that up. All right. So again, create maybe some uniqueness there. Always be ready with a plan B. As I said, I've read through business plans and they look good, but as you investigate some of these things, you may want to just make slight changes. I don't think anybody should completely change their business idea. But again, if you felt like you weren't going to be able to be competitive with your idea, maybe you could just change it a little, change your product, or if you're opening a restaurant, maybe open a different type of food at your restaurant or something like that. You can do it. As I said, the plans I've read have been fantastic so far, and I believe all of them have the chance for success. But to make sure you have that chance, doing your research and going through these steps of the business plan is key. Knowing who your customers and your competition are, knowing the benefits of your product or service, that way you can sell it to others. Always be able to sell your own product to others at any moment, and develop strategies to either capture new customers or at least maintain the ones you have. And give free rein to your creativity. That's what's cool about being an entrepreneur, is it allows you to be creative in so many different ways. Yeah. All right. And have a passion for what you're doing. All right. So some think points for success. I'm not going to read all these, but there's some really fun ones there. Just things to think about, and things that you could adjust. For instance, your hours. If there's too much competition. I saw somebody had a daycare idea, but to adjust their hours to include nighttime or weekend hours is a great way to compete. Although there's a huge need for childcare, so that you could compete probably even without those hours. But know your niche, which is kind of your target market. Know what they need, what they want. Yeah, commit to having a high quality product and service to be out there with. All right, so all about competition this week. It's been fun so far, and as you go through any of these, please let me know if you have any questions. I'm hoping to maybe have just an intimate individual check-in with everybody sometime, probably in a couple weeks during the term, and give a little bit further guidance and a chance to catch up with everybody. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, please let me know. Email is the best way to catch me. And yeah. And just let me know if you have questions. Thank you for listening in today.